So just picture this person, blonde, suburban nurse, Mercedes, 8 pit bulls. She's posting them on Instagram. She's putting the little flower Facebook as well. She's posting the little flower crown on it. She has like I love my pit bull like bumper sticker on her car. She's got like the pit bull picture frames in her house, and like all of her pit bulls have pictures on her Facebook with like the little Instagram flower crown on them. You know what I mean? Like that's a pit mommy.
Jacob, welcome.
What's up?
King of the super chats and the second pro pitbull dude here. So thank you so much for coming in. And
thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we commence.
Not much to tell. I mean, pretty coincidental that you brought up pit bulls and in that last live debate. And it's like, well, I live with 2 of them, man, and they're two of the best dogs that I've ever met. Not going to go out on a limb and say they're the best dogs, but they're damn good dogs if they're raised and trained right. And I think that's the ultimate end all be all when it comes to pit bulls. They have to be trained.
And John, do you have pit bulls of your own?
I had a lot of them growing up. I don't have any currently, but I even bred them about 20 years ago, so I have pretty good experience with them.
So it's your fault. No, I'm just kidding.
It is, seriously.
And Jessix,
the reason all these kids are being mauled. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And Jessix, you've had a pit bull too, right?
Yes. He was a pit bull mix, Catahoula leopard hound pit bull mix. But pit bull, it's sort of like brown hair, like it's definitely a dominant gene. You can definitely, if any dog's bred with a pit bull, that square big head is very apparent through any of the other breeds. So,
yep.
And he had a lot of pit bull tendencies, and he was a very sweet dog. I didn't have any bad experiences. That he did bite my sister one time. She stepped on his tail, so it wasn't necessarily out of nowhere. But I mean, I personally have had only good experiences with pit bulls as well, but it doesn't necessarily change my stance, I think. And I'm not like very hardcore, maybe like some people might be, but.
Well, let's go on.
No, I would just say I'm not like super hardcore. Everybody should have a pit bull either. So I guess that's good. We're in the middle ground there because I don't think
we'll find some
everybody
nuanced positions. I feel like.
Not everybody is capable of raising a pit bull. That's from what I've seen. So.
Well, starting from the the pro pit bull side, would you be able to steel man the arguments of the anti-pit bull people? Like, what are some frequent arguments that you've heard, and how do you usually respond to them? Let's start with John.
Well, let me see this. I guess people usually cite statistics when it comes to pit bulls, and I guess any accidents that happen around pit bulls. But I guess it's just difficult, right? Because you can generalize, but at the same time, there's a lot of I would say the majority of pit bulls do not bite people, and they do not have those sort of confrontations. They do tend to be animal aggressive. I think that we need to acknowledge that. And that's very different than being people aggressive. There's 2 very different things. So if we're talking in the realm of pit bulls attacking humans, I think that's a very different discussion than pit bulls attacking other animals, because I think that's like a significant aspect of what that breed is and what it's been bred for. It's a working breed in a sense of it's, traditionally speaking, it's been bred to fight. But for the most part, I think that the type of pit bulls that most people have these days are not have not been bred in that vein for many generations. So,
and before response, Jacob, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think he pretty much nailed it there. That's pretty much I would agree with a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, you can't generalize. Every dog has its own personality, and different dog breeds have different characteristics. Pit bulls are, by nature, they're more aggressive, but that doesn't make them bad dogs. I mean, to be honest, I think bad training makes a bad dog.
Well, let's now go to Spinachbrah, since it all pretty much started with you when I was seeing your various memes. And just tell me, even before you respond to that, what originally prompted this particular discussion about pit bulls at this time? It almost feels like deja vu, like this discussion has been had before. I see 4chan threads about it all the time. Like, why now? Why was it brought up now? Do you know?
Oh, it's because, of that new news article where these 2 pit bulls killed two babies and almost killed the mother of the babies that were trying to defend them. And those were their pit bulls. So, like you say, it's the owner, but they were literally the family of the pit bulls, and they killed their kids. And you see on the Facebook page that's archived, of course, that the dad said that there were issues with her pit bulls in the past, but you shouldn't get rid of these two beautiful dogs just because of past experiences. Well, that Facebook post happened and it went by, and then later on those pit bulls killed their kids. So it all stemmed from that. Everyone's been back on the bandwagon of hating pit bulls, and it's for a good cause. I mean, you look at the statistics, and pit bulls are less than 6% of the population of dogs in America. And if you look at the stats, well, there are 284 of the deaths and 65% of the deaths from dog-related human occurrences. So it's not looking too well for the pit bull camp, in my opinion, with all this stuff that's going on here.
So how many of those deaths were related to home invasions? I mean, because I have no statistical information here. I did no research. I literally just kind of got pulled into this 2 days ago. I can't cite any of that information, but I would go out on a limb and suggest that I bet you a lot of those dog-related maulings had to do with either domestic disturbances or domestic abuse or home invasions, because that is what a pit bull is, hands down. You couldn't find a better dog when it comes to defense and protection. So if you have the statistics, how many of those were related to home invasions or domestic disturbances?
Well, I wouldn't say they're good for protection if they're killing babies, wouldn't you say? Like,
I would say I would
they're maulers, they're biters, they're terrorizing our playgrounds. But I assume some of them are good dogs.
Terrorizing our playgrounds. That's a good.
Well, those would be two separate things to look at then. So
No,
there
I'm
should
actually
be
curious to see statistics on that as well. I'm gonna go on a limb, and like I haven't done research myself either. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I don't think looking up that category specifically would sway the statistics too much. That's just my personal belief and guess. I have no idea. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I would say it probably doesn't sway it. My take on pit bulls specifically is I think there's such, and I'm not accusing either of you of doing this. You seem to have a pretty more intelligent take on pit bulls than I've seen from some of these like Facebook pit mommies. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like pit bulls are an aggressive breed. They were bred to be aggressive. We look at a golden retriever, we look at a sheepdog, and we know what that dog is bred for. And those dogs still have those characteristics, even though this dog, any sheepdog living in some suburban house isn't a sheepdog, hasn't been bred as a sheepdog for many generations. You can still recognize those characteristics when they're chasing the kids around the playground, right? So just for example, so plenty of dogs that haven't been bred for these things in multiple generations still carry the characteristics. And you've acknowledged that pit bulls do still carry aggression. And I think my issue isn't so much with pit bulls specifically or pit bull owners specifically. I think it's just the overall media narrative of like the nanny breed that I think is really dangerous. And I think that's what causes a lot of people to buy these dogs thinking that they're in no way aggressive at all, unprovoked, when that's just not true. And it can happen. It can happen, and it does happen all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. The nanny dog thing, who knows if that's true or not. I will say, so they're not even my dogs. I've lived with them for years. I've known them since they were pups, but my nephew and niece are real young. And if you raise your tone towards those kids because they're acting up out of line, those dogs will turn it and look at you, letting you know. So I can understand the nanny breed definition. But yeah, just saying blanket statement, yeah, they're great with kids. No, the dog has to be raised right. And this is why the whole pit bull thing to me is ridiculous. You could take any dog breed on the planet and that dog's capable of ripping somebody's throats out. They all stem from wolves. So the aggression is inbred. It's ingrained in every dog breed. Now, pit bulls, yes, they were trained to be killers. After, like John said, it's centuries. Or it's been decades since that's been washed out, except for people that want to do, dog fights, which is to me, that's, you should be in prison the rest of your life if you're holding dog fights.
Definitely.
But yeah, pit
Now,
bulls are the go-to for it.
Now, as far as the statistics, I'm looking over here on dogsbite.org, and it says victim age groups and gender. Their 13-year data set shows that 48%, 208 in parentheses, of all fatality victims were less than 9 years old, and 52% were more than 10 years old, a significant rise from the early CDC study years, when victims were more than 10 years old, only comprised 30% of all deaths. And down in the bottom, it says over here, of all age groups, children ages 0 to 2 had the most victims, 27%, or 115 people. The highest age-specific fatality rates is infants less than 1, which comprised 48%, or 55 people of this group. The 50 to 69 and more than 70 age groups followed, each accounting for 18%, or 76 people of all deaths.
That hurts my soul.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, but it's not surprising. But I want to let John talk. I don't want to take up all. Yeah, so I want to hear John talk.
Well, I guess the one thing that we would have to, I guess, get a little bit specific about is the whole aspect of aggressiveness with pit bulls, because I see that there's a potentiality that because they're very more so animal aggressive than people aggressive, what happens is that a lot of times the pit bull will start to go after another pet, and then in the process of breaking up that fight, then the person ends up getting bit by the pit bull, and then it's like, well, see, look at the pit bull that's going after the people. But for the most part, from what I've seen, is that the pit bulls are much more aggressive towards animals, and it's more rare that they're aggressive towards people, but it definitely does happen. And the worst part about it is when the pit bulls are aggressive, they're very tenacious. So that makes the attacks just even more, I guess, dramatic, because they don't stop.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. So, like, I don't know if anybody has ever seen those pictures of like a pit bull after it goes after a porcupine, for example, versus something like a golden retriever or a German shepherd. The pit bull's ignoring all of the pain that it's receiving because that's what it was bred to do, is to keep going even though it's getting hurt, right? Especially in dog fighting. So you'll see these pictures of the pit bull it's got pins in its eyeballs, in its mouth, all inside its mouth, everywhere. I mean, he looks like a porcupine after this attack. And I think that's my main issue with pit bulls, is that compared to something like a German shepherd, if a German shepherd bites you and you punch it in the face, it's probably going to run away. If you beat it with a pole, it'll probably stop and quiver. Not all of them. I mean, obviously, granted, some dogs may just be more aggressive, but a pit bull is just bred to keep going. So that's why so many maulings, I would say, happen from pit bulls versus other dogs, which other dogs may bite, maybe even bite at a higher rate. I don't know. But the maulings happen so consistently with pit bulls as a breed on the whole, because they have that gene in there where they don't stop even when they should. I mean, I've seen videos just in my research, because I was not anti-pit bull until the last year or so. And I wouldn't say I'm like staunchly like euthanize all of them. There's some people that believe that. I don't know if I fall into that camp specifically, but I was very pro pit bull for a long time until I had discussions with friends who aren't. And I've seen videos of these dogs mauling cops if a cop comes into the house, and this dog shot in the head and is still chasing the officer, right? So that's scary when you're thinking about maybe, especially around children, if a kid, kids hit their parents all the time. Imagine this kid hits a pit bull because the kid doesn't know any better, and you can't get this dog off of the child, even though the dog might be friendly and it was provoked, it won't stop the attack. And that's sort of my issue, why I think they shouldn't really be around children in general. Now, I'm not saying every single pit bull is going to maul a child, but when you look at something like that, where it's something that even if the dog is trained and it is provoked, because children are very provocative, they'll do things even to their parents, poking buttons and seeing what they can get away with. When you have a dog that's not going to stop, even when you're shooting it, that's dangerous. It's really, really dangerous, and they can be very destructive in those scenarios.
Well, before I get to Spinachbrah, what I think you bring up here is, at what point does something that is a problem in a certain amount of cases become too unbearable so as to have some kind of legislation or some kind of a response to it. You know, because if there are certain bad things that happen, but they only happen like this very tiny percentage, then, you know, common sense would say, oh, we're just going to let this slide. But if it is something that everybody agrees in that this small amount is already too much, then something
I would say
should
if
be
we're
done.
talking about 100, what was it? How many babies specifically under one? Like I would say that's kind of a problem, you know?
No,
I mean,
and I somewhat agree, but I think the biggest problem is people, you know, getting pit bulls or having kids, young babies around pit bulls. There's two ways for your child, your infant child, or even any child to be safe around a pit bull. One, the pit bull gets raised with the child from being a puppy. Because it would have to be a psychotic dog and you would see the signs before. If it's raised from a puppy with the child, that nobody will ever hurt that child. That dog will make sure of it, and the dog will never hurt that child if they're raised in sequence. And the other way is if the pit bull is matured, and so that's the big thing, and that's the big problem with pit bulls. People just pass the buck. Like ours, they're both rescue dogs. You know, people like, sure, that pit bull is cute as fuck when it's the size of a football. Most people don't realize it's going to be 100 pounds and it's probably going to be stronger than most people in the house.
Yeah.
So they'll pick it up when it's a little pup, and then they'll bring it home, and then they had no idea the characteristics that pit bulls have. And so, to be honest, that's why the whole debate about pit bulls, I think, is ridiculous. I think there needs to be more accountability with the owners.
Spinachbrah? Yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah, let me hop in real quick. So if you look at this People article, 2 children killed, mother hospitalized after family pit bulls attacked them outside Tennessee home. Well, these are their pit bulls. The pit bulls killed the 2-year-old daughter and they killed the 5-month-old son. They, like Jacob was saying, they were raised with the pit bulls. I mean, how are you supposed to raise kids with pit bulls if they're just going to kill the kids before they're even good enough to, I don't know, be able to not like kill kids?
No, you're putting words in my mouth. Like I said, if the pit bull is raised as a puppy with the infant, so they grow up at the same rate. You know what I mean? If you bring home a puppy pit bull, then I would say, yeah, that's safe to keep it around the kid. You know?
Well, I would say that's like Russian roulette. Like, this is a baby pit bull that we have no experiences with, and we're gonna raise it with a little kid. That's just
hold on. To be fair to Jacob, though, there should be some way for us to know whether it's like an axiom that pit bulls that are raised as puppies are always going to, or 99.9% of the time, act the way that Jacob says. I want to see if there's any literature.
It's kind of funny what Jacob says.
Yeah,
I'm not using this as an argument, but it's a big meme in the anti-pit bull communities that when you said that you yell at the kids and the pit bull will get angry at you. There's a big joke that's resource guarding, that they just don't want you to, seem like a threat to their food.
So like I told Lev, I am not on any social media. So all of your guys' social media arguments are kind of bullshit to me. I'm literally a digital.
No, I'm not saying I agree
YouTube.
with it. I'm just saying
Jacob is free. Jacob is free from the Matrix.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, I read all of this, so I know all of it. How much time around the pit bulls? That's my argument to all of these arguments. How much time? John here, probably I want John to speak more. He's got the most fucking experience with them. I've just grown up with multiple friends. I've grown up around friends that had pit bulls, and now I've lived with them for 4 years. And so, but John was raised them. So,
Yeah.
I've been around pit bulls my whole life. I've owned one.
Okay.
A part pit bull, but I've grown up around pit bulls my whole life.
Everybody
in my family has owned big dogs.
Here's the really important question then. Your guys' experience, did it involve seeing or growing up with pit bulls from when they were puppies? Because what we're trying to figure out here is, have there been instances where when a pit bull grows up with a human being from being a puppy, it still ends up going nuts and biting, like if somebody steps on its tail or whatever? That's really what we're trying to figure out here. So, John, I don't know if you have any ideas there, like what exactly would happen.
I think the bigger discussion is really understanding dog behavior, regardless of breed.
Yeah.
And really, like, because I think what was stated in the article about the dogs that I guess mauled the kids is that there was an incident prior to that mauling. So it's almost like people are overlooking these symptoms of an unstable dog, regardless of the breed. I don't necessarily know if Pitbull is more unstable than other dog breeds, but I know unstable dogs when I see them, right? Like they're not wagging their tails, they're kind of looking at you from a different angle. A lot of times when a dog can actually be scared, they're actually more aggressive. They're very protective of their own space. So I think that's really the important discussion regarding this whole pit bull conversation is families being able to recognize when their dog has a tendency to not have a rock solid temperament. You know?
That's partly the case, but I want to make sure that we do go back to the initial question. Maybe it's not an answerable question, which is absolutely fine. But the big question would be, have there been any experiences you guys have had with pit bulls when they were still like growing up from a puppy stage to an adult stage, that they've had an interaction with like the kid in the family, for the infant in the family for that time, and that they did not end up biting them, or they did end up biting them in some freak occurrence? That's really what I think is important here as well, because that's the question of, can people make sure that these things don't happen if they just take pit bulls in when they're still just forming, as opposed to when they may have had a history of violence that they don't even know about early on, and bring those to the kids. So that's like a very kind of like black and white thing that I'm trying to establish here, because if we're talking about it, we're not just talking for shits and giggles. The idea would be is like, are there any policies that could be implemented here where the people who want pit bulls would still be able to have the pit bulls, but at the same time, we know that when it comes to the growing up with the infants, that's not going to cause any problems. Or will it? Like, I don't know, John, that specific example, any track record there?
I haven't heard. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I specifically have not heard of a dog being raised, or a pit bull being raised from a puppy to end up having issues with the family or the kids or anything like that. But I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure that it has happened. I'm sure it's happened with every breed. I don't know if it happens more often with pit bulls, but I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't come across that personally.
Spinachbrah, in the statistics that you were looking at, were there examples? Like, I know there were definitely a lot of infants within that statistic I mentioned. Were there any statistics that specified whether or not the pit bull grew up with this family and with these infants and then ended up attacking them?
I can't find specific data on that. I was just looking at the actual totals.
And I think it's something like, if you want to argue, like, let's just say for the sake of the argument that, okay, if you raise a pit bull as a puppy with a baby and they grow up together, it won't bite that baby. What's going to stop it from, biting an oopsie baby a couple of years later when the pit bull's hasn't grown up with this baby? Just for the sake of argument, I'm just curious. It could still be an issue, in my opinion, even if you're 100% correct that a pit bull would never bite a child that it grew up with. Or what happens if your pit bull's a full-grown adult and you have children and your younger sister just had her baby and is bringing her newborn over? It's like, I think it still wouldn't, even if your argument is 100% true, I think there's still instances where it could still pose a danger.
Yeah, you could go check your mail and a drunk driver could swerve into your fucking mailbox while you're checking it. You know what I mean? It's instant. Well, that's my problem with statistics and anecdotal information. I mean, that is my ultimate problem. And my stance on that kind of goes across the board with everything. But anyways, I was just making an example. But if we want to just continue to beat down this path, I mean, because I thought the overall arching debate or conversation was about, are pit bulls good or bad? Should people have them or not? Yeah. So I have no personal experience, and like I said, I did no study on whether or not, but I can tell you, because I've raised a lot of big dogs. I've raised nothing but big dogs my whole life. When you get a puppy and you raise it correctly, I think, and John made the point too, it doesn't. The whole debate, like, let's narrow in on pit bulls, man, Malamutes can be bad. I grew up with a Malamute, and he was the best dog I've ever had. But that thing could tear you to pieces just as fast as a pit bull, but he's not as aggressive. But the point is it all boils down to training. More education needs to be done. I don't think everybody should go and own a pit bull. There are calibers of difficulty for dog breeds. Pit bull is on the high end. of caliber of difficulty for raising. So I'm not advocating for, hey, go get a pit bull. And no, I wouldn't bring a pit bull home with an infant either. You know, like I'm saying, I would think if you raised it right from being a puppy and you showed it lots of love and introduced it slowly in controlled environments to the child, over time they build a relationship. There is a reason for that myth of nanny dog. That, I mean, that's not just a made up thing. There is a reason that is a myth, you know. So, but what it boils down to is owner accountability. When something goes on, John said it right. If you're a good dog trainer, if you have dogs, you should be able to know, hey, that's questionable personality traits that this dog is displaying right now. I should probably find somebody more qualified, which there's places out there. They'll take the most broken dogs and raise them. So, but you need to, if you're going to bring I think the biggest overall problem with all of this is everybody looks, not everybody, but a lot of people look at dogs like toys now. That's not what it is. And every breed was bred for a certain thing. And yeah, pit bulls were bred to kill. Okay. They've been more and more domesticated over the years, but that doesn't mean that the aggression is gone. So it takes it takes experience in raising big dogs to bring a pit bull into the house. And that's where I stand on it. I think more education needs to be done to let people know, like, hey, if you're going to pick a pit bull up, you better be ready. And hopefully you've raised a big dog before. And I've raised several big dogs, and I'll tell you, Tater is, man, toughest, strongest dog I've ever met. And I've met bigger dogs. I've raised bigger dogs.
Is
and
he the Malamute?
No, the Malamute was the best dog. I was actually born. So, and here's I mean, I don't know.
I want to make sure Spinachbrah could also reply, but I do want to see that if you have any dogs, by the way, around here, it'll be interesting to see them. But Spinachbrah, I'm curious. What your response would be?
Well, that's the thing that these pit bull advocates are saying. Oh, they weren't trained right. It's the owner's fault. Blah blah blah. You don't hear that about golden retrievers. You don't hear that about cocker spaniels or Boston terriers. All of them. It's only the pit bulls, or mostly only the pit bulls, and like very like rare dogs like Malamutes or whatever, that you're always saying, oh, it's the trainer's fault. Well, no one blames the trainer for golden retrievers or Boston terriers.
They're not bred to be aggressive,
or all the other ones. So you can't just blame it on the trainer if all these other dogs don't need to be trained not to maul 4-year-old kids at a playground. Or like,
no, you should,
when I was a little kid.
Let's Spinachbrah finish one at a time.
Yeah, sorry.
When I was a little kid, I lived on a dead-end road. And close to the end of the dead-end road, I couldn't drive past and go to other streets because like half a mile away from my house, there was a pit bull that was just roaming around. And the neighbor that lived with the pit bull, she just let it roam around. And one time I wanted to walk with my parents to the gas station, and we couldn't. My dad took a walking stick, and the pit bull was running at us, and we acted like we were going to hit him. We didn't want to hit him. And then the neighbor comes out with a gun, and we call the police, and the police can't do anything. That neighbor aimed her gun at my dad for trying to defend us from the pit bull. And luckily she was there so that she could call that pit bull away so we don't have to hurt the pit bull. But I mean, it's just ridiculous that you're saying that all these dogs need to be trained when all these other dogs don't need to be trained not to kill kids and not to just attack random people on the road that aren't even on their property. That's the point I have to say.
I guess just to interject real quick, were you 100% sure that dog was going to attack you?
Or not just trying
I was on the road, and the house was like 20 feet away, and we were just walking down, and that pit bull got 3 feet away from my dad. Well, it was going after me or my, at the time, 10-year-old brother, and my dad jumped in the way between us. I mean, that pit bull was only 3 feet away when my dad aimed the stick at him, and the neighbor ran out and aimed her gun at us and told the pit bull to come back. So that pit bull was definitely going to attack us if the neighbor didn't come out and threaten to kill us.
I guess for me growing up, I had a similar experience with neighbors that had pit bulls, and we were playing in the back, and they let the dogs loose, and we all scattered because we all freaked out. And then it wasn't until I had pit bulls, like many years after that, I saw similar activity where the dogs run up to you, but you have the perception that because it's a pit bull, it's automatically running up to attack you. And
well, when a dog's nice, and most people, I mean, I've had dogs in the past, when a dog is running at you and wants to pet, or running at you and wanting to kill you. And when a dog's barking at you and snarling and all that shit, and it's just running at, sorry to cuss, but it's just running at you, you know it's going to try to bite you or do something to you that you don't want. So that dog in that case was definitely trying to maul my 10-year-old brother. So yeah.
Not to play like the fence. Oh, sorry. Let me just say, not to play like the fence sitter here, but I do think that there is just more nuance between like, oh, it's the owner and oh, it's always the breed. Like, I do think that there are pit bulls that can be raised as puppies and never bite anyone and live a fulfilling life. I don't think we should euthanize all pit bulls and that there's no hope for the breed. But at the same time, and my issue isn't even with the breed itself. It's more so with the media narrative and the misinformation about pit bulls in general. It's the shelters that are saying, oh, come get this pit bull. He wouldn't hurt a fly. He was abandoned by his owners. And you're just sitting, basically going into the shelter and getting this mystery meat of a dog. You have no idea what's in it, but it's definitely mixed with pit bull. Because like I said, you can recognize that square ass head from anywhere. They're cute. I think pit bulls are cute, but I'm still kind of scared of them. But I love the big head. I'm sorry. I can't. It's just, I want to smush it. Anyway.
Yeah. And I agree with Jessix. Like,
it's like there's just
reform.
Exactly.
You make sure that you get your background check before you get your pit bull. If you got a 10-year-old kid at home, that's a no. If you're an owner that's just gonna let it roam around and go over to playgrounds and maul little kids, that's a no.
That's not cool.
No, but I do think that these shelters and stuff need to be held accountable for just saying like, oh, come get this.
I mean,
come get this pit bull. It'll be fine.
That's not feasible.
Pit bull's great with kids, and it's like you don't actually know anything about the pit bull as a shelter. You think you know about the pit bull. You don't know anything. You're saying that this is going to be a great family dog for your kids. You have no idea who bred it, how irresponsibly it was bred, what kind of home it was living in before, and then you have the Facebook pit mommies saying every pit bull is wonderful. It's not the breed. It's always the owners. So then them and their friends get pit bulls of their own, and they have no idea what background history of this dog is. They adopted it from a shelter, and then somebody in their family gets mauled or hurt from the pit bull. So I think it is a mix of both the breed, the media narrative, and the owners. I think all of these things can be true at once, and it's just this idea that like pit bulls are not, any more aggressive than any other breed. They don't bite more than any other breed. Which I'm not saying you guys are saying specifically. But just the narrative in general, that they don't bite people at any higher rate. They're not more aggressive. They're the nanny breed, and they're so good with kids. And look at this pit bull next to my baby, and all this almost propaganda, I would say, from some pit bull enthusiasts. That leads people to buy these irresponsibly.
Quick aside here, Jessix. You were saying pit mommies. Can you explain what exactly is the phenomenon of the pit mommies?
Okay, so just picture this. Picture this person: blonde, suburban nurse, Mercedes, 8 pit bulls. She's posting them on Instagram. She's putting the little flower Facebook as well. She's posting the little flower crown on it. She has like I love my pit bull like bumper sticker on her car. She's got like the pit bull picture frames in her house, and like all of her pit bulls have pictures on her Facebook with like the little Instagram flower crown on them. You know what I mean? Like that's a pit mommy.
What is the psychology?
It's just
behind
it's just a stereotypical just white girl that is just like obsessed with pit bulls and is like her whole Facebook page is like talking about pit bulls and how they're not aggressive.
But why do you think that is the case? Where does that come from?
It's the same reason that white women love being like super liberal about anything. Like they see a class that's getting a class of anybody, a class of person, a class of animal, whatever, that's just getting like talked down on by people, and they have like that white savior complex. Like they just want to be the savior of anyone and anything. And Pitbull is just the one that the Pitbull's just the one that they've latched on to.
John, I'm curious, what do you think of that? Is that accurate, you'd say?
Probably, yeah. That sounds about right. I think she's spot on.
White women just love defending something. Like they just love having that savior complex.
I can't even show my sister this debate at this point because 4 out of 5 of your quotes there, like that's my sister, dude. You nailed it. You nailed it. But not 8 too, and not doing the whole posting on Facebook about how great they are though, because I think that's a big problem. I agree. I think that is a big problem with just they're great. Look at it. Look at my little 10-second video of it being so good. I mean it's. You can't tell people that because the pit bulls, they require some intense training.
Well, the pit bull conversation, I think it opens up a wider topic here of responsibility. When we're talking about guns, there is a procedure that people have to go through in order to have a gun. When you're talking about cars, you have to take a driver's test. When you're talking about having kids, well,
they should be licensed
that.
for that. There should be a license for that. I am fully in the camp of that. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing, right? Like, the one thing that contributes the most to how human beings behave on this planet has no checks to it as far as, like, are these people competent enough to actually put a human life out there into the world and have it be a responsible human life? You know, like, that is a very big thing. But in a similar conversation, when it comes to the pit bulls, are people responsible enough to be able to handle that kind of energy? Because when we're talking about, especially like with the infants and all that, most people, I feel, think of themselves to be much more competent than they actually are
in every aspect,
exactly.
all across the board.
And the question is, how would we get people to admit that, yeah, I'm not that competent at this? You know, you wouldn't. So the question is, like, do you legislate something? And I don't know, like, Spinachbrah, what are your thoughts on the actual legislation, things related to that when it comes to making sure these things don't happen and human responsibility?
Well, I just think that a dog should be used for what it was bred for. Like, a beagle should be used for hunting. A killing machine like a pit bull, I mean, there's many things we can do with that. I mean, we're sending $100 billion to Ukraine.
The war,
We should send pit bull to we should send pit bull aid to Ukraine so that they can kill off all those Russians that are invading them. I mean,
we could put lasers on them.
Debate, but we should have pit bull
I'm fucking dead.
relief for these Ukrainians. They're killing machines. I'm sure they'll be able to get some death tolls up there.
The problem is they might eat the Ukrainians too, though.
What?
The problem is they might eat the Ukrainians too.
So there you go. These pit bulls are killing machines.
No, what we can do, we could have like drones.
We should have them around your kids.
We could have drones that would have baby powder. They would throw baby powder at the Russians, and then the Russians be like, "Why am I covered in this?" And then the pit bulls come in. You know, they smell the baby, and it's just I don't know.
I'll tell you that the Russians are the 4-year-olds on the playground. You know.
Yes, exactly.
Funny. No, I would argue that, like, you know, because they do have licenses for specific animals. If you're thinking about like animal rehabilitation, wildlife rehabilitation, I wouldn't be opposed, and not just for pit bulls, but any large dog breed needing some kind of training or requirement. Because even like German shepherds, for example, not necessarily bred for dog fighting, but they are more aggressive. They were bred for fighting. You know, and they don't maul at the same rate that pit bulls do. I would say they're less dangerous, even though they may be just as aggressive. They're less dangerous in their aggression just because of the way that pit bulls were bred versus the way that German shepherds were bred. But German shepherds are a very aggressive dog breed as well. I think they're probably number 2 or number 3 behind Rottweilers. And I would argue for even those breeds, maybe you need some kind of training before you're able to keep one. That would be, I mean, I would be 100% for that. Because even when I was like pro pit bull, I hate to say like pro or anti pit bull, because it's just an animal, and I honestly do pity the animals for
they're all souls at the end of the day, like they're all
but you know, I even when I was pro pit bull, I would argue that not everybody should be able to own one. That like you should have to have some kind of training or whatever, you know.
Well, here's where they're banned. So the UK, New Zealand, Belgium, France, Denmark, Poland, Finland, and Norway. And some of these may not be fully banned. Some of these may just be limited ownership. So maybe they do take certain things into account.
I actually have a comment about that. And this isn't something that I have a specific statistic for. It's not something that I have, but it's something that I've seen. I've seen it a lot. This is all anecdotal, but I do want to share it because of the stigma around pit bulls. And I'm not saying that the stigma is an issue necessarily. I think stigma in certain instances is important to have because it means that you're aware of what could happen. But because of the stigma around pit bulls in some places, in these areas where pit bulls are banned, you'll see these shelters now selling pit bulls as mixed breeds. They're not they're not disclosing that the pit bull is mixed with pit bull, or they're saying it's you know, some other kind of bull terrier, but not like a pit bull, which is why some areas have started banning bully breeds as a whole, because they would call it like a something else, a bully something, instead of like a pit bull specifically, because the pit bull in some areas is banned, just that breed specifically. So then you have people now buying dogs that they don't even know were pit bulls, because they're not even though like I'm very familiar with most dog breed. I could tell that it, like I said, that square head is very indistinguishable, but you know, but they you know, they're not disclosing necessarily that this dog is bred with pit bull. So then this person is buying a dog that they don't necessarily know is a pit bull, so they don't know how to even address maybe some of those more aggressive behaviors and train it properly.
Here would be a question for John. Now, John, since you are, I think, the most biologically knowledgeable person in this panel, could be wrong, but would there be a way that pit bulls can be further bred to get rid, or maybe genetically altered in some way, to get rid of that part of them that makes them so aggressive?
Yeah, and I think they have been. I think that it's been taking place when people really understand, you know, how the traditional dogfighting pit bulls were actually bred or have been around those types of litters. It's night and day from most of the quote unquote pit bulls that people are buying at this point in time. Just to, I guess, give you an example, the people that are really into that whole like continuing the lineage of dog fighting and all that stuff, a lot of times they have to separate the puppies at like 3 weeks old, because the puppies start to tear each other up.
I've seen that.
They don't have to be trained. The puppies at 3 weeks old, they don't have to be trained to fight. That's what they want to do. And even when they get older, that sort of lineage of that specific style of breeding, those dogs would rather fight than eat or have sex or anything. They're not bred to be pets at all. So on the other side, then you have these very muscly sort of dogs that are bred for looks. And the danger with
they're goofy as hell.
That's what I have. One of the goofy ones.
Yeah, the danger of breeding just for looks is that you don't breed for temperament. So they're breeding just for, like, you know, over muscle looks, and
they're creating himbos.
And also, like, you know, you can create unstable breeds like that, you know, because you're not breeding,
and especially in those circles, there's a lot of inbreeding as well, which causes a lot of issues.
Tons of inbreeding and just tons of not focus on temperament. So absolutely, if you breed for temperament, if you want to breed dogs that are less dog aggressive, I think the pit bull is always going to have a little bit of that background of being animal aggressive, but people aggressive, you could definitely breed that out of them, you know.
I think the issue stems from mostly like, I feel like pit bulls more often than not are irresponsibly bred than responsibly bred, at least in my area. It depends on what area of the country you're in. But I'm in South Florida. I mean, we have cockfighting, we have dog fighting, you know, we have all that stuff here. And even the people that don't necessarily participate in the dog fighting, I think a lot of the pit bulls that they own and then breed irresponsibly are still pretty close to that bloodline. You know, I think they're definitely probably not super far away from it, just because of where they sourced their dogs from, you know, and then they're breeding them irresponsibly as well.
So you kind of just brought me back to my point. It stems from the humans. Dogs,
it's
doesn't
both,
matter the breed. Well, yes, of course, they are more naturally aggressive, but like John said, you can train the aggression pretty much out of a dog. And dogs are like children their whole life. When a dog dies, when it's 10 years old, it's like a child. It can't, a domesticated dog, if you let it run wild, very few of them will survive. Only the toughest ones will survive.
There was a story, I think it was in Australia, about this girl who was raised by wolves. And this girl, she had no ability to read or write, and she could speak, but the way that she carried on, it really did seem like, you know, this is like a feral child. This child's not able to act normally. So the amount of attention, and this goes for both, like, you know, animals and people, like the amount of attention that we put on kids when they are really young, the brain is plastic, and it does have a way of changing for better or for worse over time. And I don't think people should ignore those aspects either, because when it comes to making... I mean, this could be a negative thing too, because, like, technocrats can use the power of selecting certain traits
No,
in order
yeah.
to create, just like people who are
Superhumans.
well, superhumans, I'd say that's for the elite, but they would also, theoretically, they could use it to create people who are absolutely subservient, who don't question anything. Like with China, for example, I bet my bottom dollar that they're creating human-animal hybrids in various ways to create the kind of people genetically that would be, never questioning of the regime. That would be totally
And that's
subservient.
why I have no social media right there. Because I'm not. I mean, it sounds conspiratorial, but I believe that's actually happening. That is in progress as we speak.
Yeah.
I mean, look at China's TikTok compared to America's TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
You tell me that there's not some kind of grandstand scheme going on there. So, but
Spinachbrah, I think this is also around your wheelhouse. Any thoughts on that?
Just on the human-animal hybrids.
Not just human-animal hybrids.
That's already
but
happening.
That's already happening, but specifically being
Chimera.
being able to genetically alter, let's say, humans when they're like in the baby stages, when they're still in the womb, genetically
whack.
altering them.
Yeah, I mean that's literally happened with
yeah, it's already happening.
CRISPR studies and all that.
Yeah, CRISPR, exactly. Yeah, they're already doing it.
But do you think this would lead to this kind of dystopic scenario that I outlined, where the elites would have special abilities while the plebs would just be way stupider than they are right now, or more subservient? Maybe not stupider, but like more, let's say, acting more like robots than people. Like, I don't
Literally
know.
just
Yeah.
Wall-E IRL.
Yeah, exactly. Well, does that make so much sense though? Because when you have a bunch of fat people to move around, and like, what are they there for? What's the point of them even existing? I'd understand if we're talking about people who would
Paying
be
taxes and buying stuff. They're just consumers.
Yes, but wouldn't you rather have consumers that can still physically do things in the world?
Like what?
Yeah.
Because it seems
They
like...
just have the robots making everything. You don't need humans to make things. You're just making money at that point.
No, but where does the money come from the humans
Yeah.
if those humans aren't going to do anything? At a certain point, you don't end up
They're
having...
running the robots.
While
No, haven't you seen the
shares-
Twilight Zone? Haven't you seen the Twilight Zone episode where the creator
Only
becomes
a couple.
obsolete? Yeah.
When-
No, the creator of the technology becomes obsolete
Yeah.
in the technology's eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would be my first thought. So I wouldn't expect the Wall-E people to be operating the robots if the robots would be good enough to be operated either by themselves or by a class of specialists that know everything about those robots. So that's why I think, like, with the Wall-E people, it almost seems unneeded. Like, if humanity's going in that direction, why have the Wall-E people there at all? Like,
It's
I don't
fun.
know.
Have you ever gone
Yeah.
fat people watching before? Maybe
No.
the robots just let you've never gone fat people watching? Oh, it's
No.
great. Just go to your local mall. It's exciting.
Walmart. Just
Um,
go to a Walmart.
Wall-E
No, but
Mart.
maybe that's what they're doing. They're just like, sightseeing. They just like it. It's fun. It's like reality TV for them,
I know, John. I
Put
mean,
them around.
this has gone
We've
far
got-
away from
we've
the...
gotten off topic.
You've definitely,
Well,
Yeah,
I
we're
think
off
it's I think it's good that we've gotten off topic, because I really think that we've done as much as possible on this question of the Pitbulls. Like, I think we've gone through the whole thing. But John,
really.
this is why I do want to end it on this particular question of humanity, because that is like the broader scope of what it means to genetically engineer people for certain purposes. Any thoughts on that potential future where there would be people who would be more controllable? But like I said, at that point, if you have just like Wall-E people around, then why should those Wall-E people be needed in the first place? Like, what are they going to fulfill at that point?
What a crazy ass question, man.
I like it.
Whatchamacallit? I mean, like, I don't think that you need to do genetic manipulation to control the population. If you've been paying attention the past couple of years, man. I mean, like,
YouTube algorithm, be careful.
YouTube algorithm, emotion repetition. It seems like that's all.
They don't
it's
say the
needed
V
to-
word. We don't want to get them banned.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. not.
Even
Yeah.
if this is an unlisted stream, I am just being incredibly paranoid when it comes to
Yeah.
this stuff.
Hey, you have every right to be paranoid. You don't want to be owing somebody $1 billion because you misspoke on a live
Oh,
stream.
boy.
So,
Literally.
Check your PayPal, Lev. Check your PayPal, dude. Pretty sure.
Oh, they may have
2,500
fined
deducted right
you.
now.
Yeah, but we were talking about TikTok being like this Chinese bioweapon. When I'm talking about this biological manipulation, it does not necessarily need to be going into a mother's womb and injecting, whatever stuff. We're talking about even seeing something, getting some kind of a feedback loop from the information you consume when you're like an infant. Like we've seen so many infants with iPads today.
Yep.
What exactly is that going to mean for
that
now?
drives me nuts.
Yeah,
that drives me nuts when I see it.
Like, I don't know, have you guys found that the next generation is slightly, I don't know, like Spinachbrah, you may be the youngest one here. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 21.
21, there we go.
Oh my goodness.
Are you noticing what I'm talking about, not even biologically speaking as far as mad scientists doing some stuff in the womb, but just as far as the generation of people that you're growing up around? Are you noticing a difference between the generations?
Oh, yeah, definitely. My generation is heavier weighted, is how you would say it. Yeah, they're heavier weighted.
They're
they have a
chunky.
lot more drug detained.
People of girth.
Entitled.
I don't know. I feel every
I'm not saying
generation is entitled.
I'm not saying you, but overall. So I trained helpers. I'm 31, and I trained helpers in construction. So I saw kids coming out every day.
I do know that we're not good with our hands like other generations.
No.
Like we're not crafty.
And entitled.
Speak for yourself.
I'm not even kidding. 90% of them would walk in and think that they get to tell the boss what to do on day 2, and it was overarching across the board.
It's honestly so crazy too, because
few.
I grew up with technology too, and it's like it feels like just the small change. Like when I grew up with technology, I mean, I was on my phone constantly, but I had to like text with a number pad, right? Or I was playing video games, or I went on like Facebook, and nobody was on Facebook in like 2008, 2009, right? And like just seeing the change and like the constant like, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just constantly eating up media, constantly. You're always stimulated, overstimulated constantly. I felt like I was overstimulated as a kid, and seeing this 1-year-old with like this crazy YouTube Coco Melon, like screaming in its face in bright colors constantly. It's like, it's so dystopian. It's like crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine how much like social anxiety, ADHD, like all this kind of stuff that like, I really think, I'm not going to say ADHD and social anxiety are fake, but I definitely think they're manufactured by what we consume and how we live our lives. Like definitely changes how those things manifest in your head. And they're going to be like, if my generation is not riddled with it, they're going to be riddled with it even worse. It's so nuts to me.
With my generation, it's very hard to not notice somebody not picking up their phone at least once every 5 to 10 minutes. We're very glued to our phones and all that. But with me and my friends, what we just do is when we're hanging out, we put our phones away. Maybe we turn them off, and that's just how you got to do it. Is put your dang phone away, like the boomers say.
Well, you were also mentioning something about demons and pornography. What would you say regarding not just pornography, but in general about the interactive social media landscape that kids are on today? If we kind of take a step away from whatever it is that we can fully prove as far as like our physical realm here, and just think about the metaphysical for a second, what would you say may be happening here as far as the interaction that kids would have with like not only porn, but like any kind of media? Is there some spiritual aspect to it?
I really think this is super bad for us and all that's going on. I think that literally there needs to be legislation where you put in the settings of your phone what's your birthday, and you can't access like Twitter or YouTube or whatever. Like there's YouTube for kids, like people
that's
that
even worse than the regular YouTube. That's like they have bright ass colors there, and they show the worst shit, as far as
I don't know,
color design.
And they sneak stuff in there too.
I used YouTube for kids when I was 12, and it wasn't bad, but maybe it's gotten worse now.
Did you miss the Elsa Gate? Was that what it was called?
Oh yeah,
they had all those creepy, perverted like Spider-Man and Elsa videos on.
But it's not even.
I wasn't around when I was a kid, no.
But it's not even about Elsa Gate. Like maybe you were lucky enough to see like, I don't know, Tom and Jerry or stuff like that. Right. But what I'm talking about is at the same time that stuff like Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny is shown, they would also show these cheap very brightly colored animations to kids that would have like these hot pink colors and blue colors and yellow colors, just like super bright.
They just keep mesmerized, yeah.
Yeah, they just keeping these kids in this dazed state. Like, there was this kid that I was talking with at the farm. There was this family gathering there where they were shearing the sheep. And I asked him, like, because he
That's
was
the most wholesome thing I've ever heard in my life.
It was adorable. Yeah, they had this sheep, and I have the photos, by the way, on Twitter. But anyway, I asked this kid, he was like, I think he was 6 years old, what he's interested in doing, and luckily he was interested in playing with the Nerf gun and the bow and arrow and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're
so
fascinated with that stuff.
yeah, so he's outside, which is great, and this is in the North Fork of Long Island, so these are not the poorest people on earth. So I think that this again goes to the idea that people who are more in the elites know better and are able to make sure that their kids. But even with him though, he said like, when it comes to the iPad, and this is like a 6-year-old, he said that like when I grab an iPad, and he made this pose, I'm like that, like he made a pose like that just to show me how much of a zombie he becomes. So like a 6-year-old was like fully articulate about this problem, and I also asked him just like as a separate thing, like what is it like to be a 6-year-old? And the first thing that he said is how much attention everybody pays to you.
Kids are so pure, dude. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I also noticed like the other people there, they were kind of already in a daze. Like my hope is that when you get kids early on and lead them away from that shit, they're not going to end up following the same path that I think a lot of adults and a lot of boomers, quite frankly, like you've probably seen boomers on Facebook, how addicted they are to just like adding the likes and the messages and all that. Like that is a whole other panopticon right there. But anyway, we're going to go soon. Any thoughts on, I guess, just to turn it full circle on the Pitbull discussion?
I'll give a closing statement.
Closing statement.
Send them all to Ukraine.
I wouldn't mind seeing Zelensky get bit by a pit bull.
Oh, come on. No, I like Zelensky.
He can't. I've heard that it's always his hologram that's out, that it's not even really him.
I don't. I'm just. It was a joke.
They're just CGI.
No, I'm a Zelensky stan. I mean, I don't want to turn this into the Ukraine thing because you guys are probably you guys know my stance on that. I just feel like there are people who are more on the right who, even if they wanted to say something nice about Ukraine, can't because there's too much fucking pressure to not say anything nice about Ukraine because everybody else isn't saying it on their circle. But anyway, that's going to give you a conversation for later. Speaking of which, one person who I would want to get in on that conversation, if I can, was the person who was supposed to be here for the stream. Well, like I offered him an invite. I don't think he would have ever come on, but the person, and Spinachbrah, you know who I'm talking about, but the rest of you guys don't, who I wanted to bring on, but it didn't happen, was Jack Murphy. Yes.
I don't know who it is.
Jessix, you know Jack Murphy, right?
Yeah.
We all know about the weird talkies.
Well,
I unfortunately know about Jack Murphy. I know a little too much about Jack Murphy.
Wait, John and Jacob, do you guys know about Jack Murphy?
No.
I heard the name, but I don't know his...
And again, like a respect for the guy, like if he comes up and stuff like that, and I don't want to cast any shade, but just like saying what exactly has happened, he did play a very specific role in the history of internet culture in early December. I don't know, Jessix, if you want to just explain to John and Jacob, and then we're going to go.
Maybe I'll let Spinachbrah do that one.
All right, Spinachbrah.
It doesn't need to be mentioned. We can just drop that.
All right.
I think that might be a sign that he maybe not bring him on. I don't know. I don't know.
Lev usually has a colorful cast. I'm not gonna say don't bring him on, but he's definitely an interesting choice.
Definitely.
I'm gonna have to look his name up. I have to look his name up when we're done now.
Just make sure you keep on safe search. Just leave safe search on when you.
Okay, great. Nice.
All right, and with that, I want to thank all you guys. Well, John, any final thoughts, and Jacob, let me know before we go.
I agree with the thoughts that probably all large-sized dogs you would should have some sort of permit to show that you have the capability to actually handle them. You know, you watch these old ladies like getting dragged around by the Rottweilers, and it's crazy. You know, like we can't be having that, and that's a big issue. So yeah, I think like more so than just pit bull specific, it should be large dog breed kind of oversight to a certain extent. If you want to go there, if you want to have oversight, do it for all large breeds. Let's not just circle in just on the pit bulls.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Jacob, any final thoughts on your side?
No, I mean, I think John nailed it. Yeah, and I would advocate for more education. I think people need to understand that football-sized pit bull that you pick up as a puppy is going to be stronger than you in about 2 years. So if you're going to get one, yeah, like John said, I think there probably should be some sort of licensing to ensure the safety of the community and the dog. And you should be physically fit, because that dog will be stronger than you. Any big, large dog, like John said, that dog is going to be stronger than you and faster than you. So just train them right, man. Just train them right, show them love. And I mean, to be honest, yeah, I don't understand the hate for pit bulls. So, because I mean, I didn't bring them on. I could, but they're nothing. I don't even need to. They're nothing but love if you show them love, you know. So,
well, regardless of whatever happens as far as aggression and all that, I think that humanity and animality and just like all consciousness expresses itself in ways where when the love is there, it is pretty genuine. But with that being said, quick promotions. So Spinachbrah, if people want to support Spinachbrah and find out what their personality is by drawing a gorilla, go to Amazon, draw me a gorilla, artistic interpretations of gorilla drawings. Get that book, support Spinachbrah. And John, you also have a book, 2 books today. I don't know, Jessix, if you would work on one, or Jacob, but John, you guys
got to get on that book, Grift. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah.
I've written. I just haven't published anything.
Well, you got to get on the Grift, man.
I don't even read. I can't write.
Let's hear John's promotion now.
Yeah, DMT Quest time.
Yeah, so I just well, actually, both books I put all the information for free on the DMT Quest website, so you don't even have to buy the book. But if you do want to, you can check them out. Questions for the Lion Tamer 1 and 2. You can find them on Amazon. But most importantly, check out the DMT Quest documentary. You just go to dmtquest.org, click that play button. It'll take you to the documentary. And if you like it, go ahead and share it out with your friends and family.
Excellent. And Jessix, anything you would want to promote, anything coming up? Where could people go to get your stuff?
Yeah, my Twitter is at Jessix_TV, and you know, I shit post, I girl post, and I also stream, and I make rosaries. So it's actually what I've been doing most of the stream is fulfilling an order of 100 rosaries that somebody ordered. So you can go to my Etsy. It's shop Jessix on Etsy, and I sell rosaries, I sell aprons, handkerchiefs, jewelry, and I make other stuff. I also do cosplay. So you can see that on my Twitter as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be well. I hope to see you soon. And this is going to be one of many of these Patreon-only streams coming up. So keep supporting Break the Rules. Keep being a patron. I really appreciate your support. And as always, patrons are welcome to be in this discussion. There is a link to the Zoom that they always get. So if you want to be on in the next one, hopefully I will know more days ahead when the next one's going to be, so you'll have plenty of time to get that done. Anyway, thank you guys so much. 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 Done. Anyway.